History is made this afternoon when a JetBlue flight touched down in the Cuban city of Santa Clara. It's the first commercial flight between the U.S. and Cuba in more than 50 years. And there was plenty of celebration when that plane took off from the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport there in Florida, with Transportation Secretary Anthony Foxx on board. Another sign of just how things have changed.
Cuba was always this mysterious island that was so close to us, yet could have been Mars because we couldn't go and we couldn't visit and see the beauty of that island.
Now, Americans are not allowed to travel to Cuba purely for tourist activities. There are, however, 12 travel categories approved by the U.S., and that includes educational, cultural, religious, as well as business trips. So, Cuba is now open for business, and joining us now to talk more about that is Alisa Froman, Executive Director of an organization called PlazaCUBA. And I know, Alisa, that you were actually in Cuba when the President Obama, made the announcement that they would be normalizing relations with Cuba. Your reaction, first of all, to that announcement?
Well, that was back in December of 2014, and we happened to be out with a group on a bus trip to another town, and Cubans were just jumping up and down and so excited, and actually they were mistakenly excited about the embargo having been lifted completely, which seemed pretty doubtful at that time, but we were all really excited to get back to our hotels and find out what the real news was. And that's when we heard that he was going to really make a lot of changes in our diplomatic relationships with Cuba. Many of those things have already happened, and the Cuban people were so excited to see us. I mean, people would find out that we were Americans, and they were just hugging us, and they had American flags, and really seeing it as a really new time, a new chapter for the Cuban people.
And now here we are, first flight landing in Cuba. What do you make of that?
You know, it's a long time coming. I think that although there have been a lot of charter flights out of the U.S. And into Cuba for many years, the flights are very expensive, difficult to get to. There's a lot of other costs involved. And I think what it's going to mean for people is a lot more accessibility to Cuba. It's going to be a lot cheaper, and I think that this mostly affects right now Cuban Americans who will be able to travel much more frequently to see their family members and loved ones.
So we expect many more airlines to follow suit. They're talking about maybe as many as 110 flights a day from U.S. cities to Cuban cities. Does Cuba have the infrastructure to support the increase in that number of visitors?
Well, one thing about Cuba is they're incredibly resourceful, and they are going to figure out a way to make this work. But many of the issues with the infrastructure is it's a small island. They don't have a lot of the hotels. Many hotels are in disrepair because of not putting enough money into the hotels in anticipation.
So you think that'll change?
Yeah, it's already changing. There's a bunch of new hotels going up, and they're already remodeling older hotels. A lot has changed. They've opened up hundreds of thousands of rooms that are of better quality than they were, but it's kind of not really enough. And also a thriving business right now for the everyday Cuban is that many Cubans are renting out their house. It's called a casa particular. It means you're in a private house. The prices are really inexpensive. You can get your own apartment with a kitchen and everything, or a room in somebody else's house for between maybe $25.
So something to what we compare like Airbnb here.
They do actually have Airbnb there.
So what will be the impact on Cubans and their financial situation?
Well, the impact so far, I mean, in around 2010, they really opened up a lot of private sector jobs to the average Cubans. They released 500,000 Cubans from their government jobs. And so over the last 4 years, Cubans have already been working in private enterprise, starting their own companies, their own restaurants, beauty salons.
In anticipation of the additional visitors?
Just being able to work with other Cubans that need services, so not only directed to tourism, but directed to services in their communities. And But now with the influx of even more people, more businesses are opening. There's so many restaurants, so many chefs moving there. The food quality is like gone through the roof.
Yeah, and you take groups of people to Cuba.
Yes.
Do you anticipate taking more now?
Yes. But those same infrastructure questions you ask about affect especially small businesses like ours, because the hotel, we've been booking our hotels over a year in advance.
Wow.
And now the prices have tripled. So if a hotel in the 3-star range was $100 last year, it's $300
Yeah, I guess
year.
it's sort of the growing pains now that things are different there. Thank you so much, Alisa Froman, for sharing your expertise on the issue. As we mentioned, that first commercial flight landing today in Cuba. Ted?
All right, let's go.